My name is Maria Marco. I'm a professor in the Department of Food Science and Technology at UC Davis. I've been there since 2008, and since 2019, I've been serving on the board of directors of ISAPP, where I now proudly have the role of serving as vice president. My research spans two fascinating areas, one of these being investigation of gut health, and specifically how diet can modulate the functionalities of our indigenous or native gut microbiome. Also, we're interested in how probiotics can be affected through diet and how specifically they interact with our intestinal epithelium to benefit our health. The other exciting area of research in my lab is the study of fermented foods. And specifically, we're interested in the ecology of fermented foods to better serve food quality and also to make sure our fermented foods are delivering optimal health benefits. The tie between these two very distinct areas is my love of lactic acid bacteria. I started by studying oral bacteria, then I performed my PhD investigating a plant pathogen. And it wasn't until I initiated my postdoctoral work in the Netherlands that I found lactic acid bacteria, fermented foods, and probiotics. And what I'd say is that throughout my career, I've been driven by the interest of how microorganisms, these single cell creatures, can adapt to their environment so effectively, and in turn, how their adaptations and response to the environment affects plant health, human health, and the environment. Well, first of all, I think an early one came when I started to have conversations with fermented food processors in California. They were having a major issue with foliage. It was fermented olives, and the olives tasted like they should, but they were very mushy. And so, although I was skeptical that it was a microbial origin, we were able to show that it was, and kind of this smoking gun of a yeast spoilage agent. And just the connection and help that we could provide to industry was enormously valuable and really motivated me and our lab to continue to pursue science that had a foundational relevance, but functional and industrial significance. I'd say another important highlight is the work that I've been doing on fermented foods and connecting with different communities. First of all, we've had a community science project where we've been communicating and interacting and learning from home fermenters, people who make fermented foods at home, and through that developing resources for people to use to make fermented foods. Similarly, we've been exploring fermented foods in multidisciplinary approaches with friends in humanities and social sciences to use fermented foods as a gateway to communicate and understand microorganisms amongst everyone and not just a select few. And lastly, I guess another highlight in my research is that we've recently been exploring a new kind of metabolism that hadn't been characterized before in lactic acid bacteria, in which they're able to send electrons outside their cell. And we can use that not only to improve our food fermentation, but also to put this into the complexity of what's happening between microorganisms in the digestive tract. We really are on the shoulders of giants. When we're learning science, we're really guided by our mentors and in many ways shaped by what they taught us and their approach to science. And I'd like to highlight just one person who was really significant in the development of my career. And that was my dissertation advisor, Steve Lindau. I went to his lab because I saw that he was still doing field work in addition to guiding PhD students and other students in his lab. He's a National Academy of Science member, but still really decent person. And he taught me that it's not just what you do in the lab, but also getting outside of the lab. We would go snowshoeing and camping. And that really actually triggers you to think differently. If we spend every moment in the lab, we can have tunnel vision. So he opened up my eyes to having work-life balance and to take a break from science, and that actually can enrich what you do in the lab. It's been such an honor to be a part of the ISAPP Board of Directors and ISAPP broadly. Just outstanding collection of scientists that we know when we're together, we're more than the sum of our parts. And we really need that these days to have a voice and to make an impact, to influence, and to bring what we're doing in science and probiotics, prebiotics, and all the biotics to elevate that, to make sure we're getting the message out on what is good science in the field. So really, it's the friendships of ISAPP, but altogether, it's greater than the sum of the parts. My favorite microbe would be Lactobacillus plantarum. Of all the microbes, why this one? It's because every single isolate you get, food or in the intestine or wherever you look, insect guts, is going to be a different strain. The genetic diversity of this species, so there's always going to be something new for every L. plantarum we look at.